Sarah, let's get a divorce. Mark slid the divorce agreement across the table toward me. He was wearing his military uniform, clean and stiff, but his eyes refused to meet mine. They kept shifting, nervous and uncertain. All right, I said without hesitation, picking up the pen and signing my name cleanly and decisively. Mark was stunned. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. In the past, I might have cried and begged, refusing to let go of the marriage. In the end, I would have been left completely alone, abandoned by everyone. But after months of feeling him drift away, I finally understood. Some people are simply not worth even a single tear. Facing the end felt like waking up after a long, restless sleep. When I opened my eyes, all I saw were the familiar red brick walls and olive green furniture of our military-assigned apartment. It was April 15th, 1980. I was 28 years old, and I had been married to Mark for 3 years. The memories of our slow decline surged through me. I remembered this day was inevitable. Mark would come home and ask for a divorce. His reason? Incompatible personalities. And he had met someone else. Just as I anticipated, at 3 p.m., Mark pushed open the door in his uniform. His face was dark and tense, and he was holding a document in his hand. Sarah, we need to talk. I set down the sweater I was knitting, looked at him calmly, and said, Go ahead. He sat down across from me, his fingers lightly tapping the tabletop, his usual nervous habit. Our marriage, he paused briefly, then continued, it might need to end. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, why? We're not compatible. Our values are too different, he rushed out, as if wanting to get the words over with quickly. And you've met someone else at work. You've developed feelings for her, I said, finishing the sentence for him. His cheeks flushed red, but he nodded. Months ago, those words would have shattered me. I would have broken down on the spot, begged him not to leave, and sworn I could change and become a better wife. But his heart was already set. The divorce would have been finalized quickly anyway. It wasn't until later that I would learn the woman's name was Emily Monroe, the head nurse at the military hospital. She was 5 years younger than me, soft-spoken and graceful, the kind of woman who made others feel protective. What would have enraged me most was learning that they had been seeing each other for half a year before he asked for the divorce. I had even stupidly helped create opportunities for them, thinking I was being a considerate wife. After divorce, I would have been thrown out of the military compound, ending up in a tiny back room somewhere. I'd have no job, no income, surviving by doing sewing and mending for pennies. What would make things worse was that Emily would become pregnant not long after. Mark would dote on her, showering her with care. The two of them would be blissfully in love, admired by everyone. I would become a joke, pitied by some and ridiculed by others. 3 years later, I might have died from illness, alone on a rainy night in that little room, still murmuring Mark's name. But this time, things would be different. I stood up and walked over to Mark. You're right, I said. We're really not right for each other. His eyes widened in shock. You really agree to the divorce? Of course, I replied, my voice steady and calm. Give me the agreement. I'll sign it now. He froze, clearly caught off guard by how straightforward I was. Mark, are you serious? Absolutely, I said, taking the document from him. I gave it a quick scan. You can keep the house. I just want my personal belongings. In another version of this story, I might have fought bitterly with him over that house. Looking back now, it would have been laughable. The place was part of Mark's military benefits. After the divorce, I wouldn't have been allowed to stay long anyway. Rather than waste time and dignity, I'd rather walk away cleanly. I picked up the pen. I signed my name on the divorce agreement neatly without the slightest tremble in my hand. Mark picked up the document, his eyes lingering on my signature. A flicker of complicated emotion crossed his face. Sarah, actually, he began. There's no actually, I cut him off. Since you've made the decision, don't regret it now. Mark opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end, he said nothing. Instead, he signed his name at the bottom and handed me one copy. I'll go handle the paperwork, he said. Okay. I folded the agreement and put it away carefully. I'll move out soon. Mark gave a small nod and turned toward the door. Just as he reached the doorway, he suddenly stopped and glanced back at me. Sarah, I looked him in the eyes. I wish you happiness? His expression shifted, and after a brief pause, he turned and left. The room fell silent again. I sat down, staring at the divorce papers in my hands. The pain and despair I had imagined feeling felt like they belonged to someone else. Now, strangely, I felt an overwhelming calm. Maybe it was because this outcome was long overdue. Maybe it was because I finally saw Mark's true colors. He wasn't worth my love, and he wasn't worth my hatred either. I was going to start over and to live for myself. I stood up and began to pack my things. I didn't have much, just a few changes of clothes, some underwear, and a couple of jackets. I owned almost no jewelry, only a gold necklace my mother had left me. I did have a few books, mostly old textbooks from my time at the teacher's college. I packed everything into 2 bags, then looked around the room I had lived in for 3 years. Red brick walls, a concrete floor, 1 bed, 1 table, 1 wardrobe. As simple as it got. But it had once carried all my hopes for a happy marriage. Now those dreams were gone, and instead of sadness, I felt a sense of freedom I had never known before. I slung the bags over my shoulders, opened the door, and stepped outside. Downstairs, a few military wives were chatting. When they saw me walking down with bags in hand, they looked at me strangely. Sarah, where are you going? Is it true she and Captain Carter are getting divorced? No way, weren't they always lovey-dovey? Lovey-dovey my ass. Captain Carter's been seeing that head nurse Emily for a while now. Poor Sarah. That's so sad. I heard every word, but my face remained expressionless. In the past, I would have been overwhelmed with shame and fury. Now, I didn't care. Let them say whatever they wanted. None of it mattered anymore. I was leaving this place for good. I walked to the gate of the compound and turned back for one last look at the place I had called home for the past 3 years. The tall walls, the stern guards, soldiers going in and out. This had once been my world. Now it was the last place I wanted to remember. Goodbye, I said silently to myself. Then, without looking back, I walked away. The world outside was wide and waiting. I was going to find a new life, one that truly belonged to me. I moved temporarily into a small inn on the east side of the city. It cost 20 cents a day. The owner was a middle-aged woman in her 50s named Mrs. Wong. She seemed kind and warm. You going through something, sweetheart? She asked as she helped carry my bags into the room. I just divorced my husband, I said matter-of-factly. Mrs. Wong paused for a second, then let out a sigh. Ah, these young people nowadays, divorcing at the drop of a hat. I didn't offer any explanation. I simply handed her the rent money. The room was tiny, just a bed and a small table, but it was clean. I set my bags on the table and lay down on the bed, thinking about what I was going to do next. If this had happened differently, I might have drowned in self-pity and regret. I could have wasted so much precious time. This time around, I was determined to live differently, to live brilliantly. The first thing I needed was a job. In 1980, work opportunities weren't exactly abundant, especially for women. But I remembered that a textile factory in the southern part of the city was currently hiring. The pay wasn't high, but it was stable. I also knew that in a few years, the country would begin to allow private businesses. I had heard of many people who made a fortune by running small businesses. I could try that too, but for now the most important thing was to find a job, a steady source of income. Early the next morning, I went to the textile factory. There was already a long line at the gate, dozens of people all there for the same reason. I queued up at the end with about 20 or 30 people ahead of me. I heard they're only hiring 10 people this time, one woman in front of me whispered. With this many applicants, there's no way it'll be us, another sighed. I didn't join their conversation. I just waited quietly. I had been too shy in the past, too hesitant to speak up, and I had missed out on many chances. This time, I was determined to change. Eventually, it was my turn. The interviewer was a man in his 40s wearing thick glasses. What's your name? Sarah. How old are you? 28. Married? Divorced. He looked up at me with a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Do you have any work experience? I studied textile work at a teacher's college and spent 2 years training in the school's workshop. That wasn't entirely true. I had studied the subject but didn't spend 2 full years on the machines. Still, I wasn't lying about my background. The interviewer nodded and jotted something down on the form. Why do you want to work here? I need a stable job to support myself, I said, and I'm genuinely interested in the textile industry. He gave me another glance, then said, All right, go home and wait for notice. I walked out of the interview feeling nervous. I had no idea if I would be accepted. If not, I'd have to think of another plan. I waited in the inn for 3 days. Finally, someone came to deliver the news. I got the job. I was so happy I nearly jumped with joy. It was the first good news I'd received since starting over. The next day, I reported for work at the textile factory. The plant manager was a woman in her 50s named Miss Lee. She looked very serious. Sarah, you'll be assigned to Workshop 3. You'll be training under Master Zhang. Master Zhang was a woman in her 40s. She was highly skilled and seemed kind. Sarah, she asked, have you done this kind of work before? I've studied some theory, I answered, but I haven't had much hands-on experience. That's all right. Take your time and learn. She was incredibly patient in teaching me how to operate the machines. I paid close attention and worked hard. Though the job was tiring, I felt fulfilled. For the first time, I was working entirely for myself, and it felt good. The pay wasn't high, just 42 won a month, but it was enough to live on. Besides, I could still use my free time to do other things. I remembered that some people had already started doing small trades, selling eggs, vegetables, things like that. It wasn't fully legalized yet, but enforcement was still loose. I figured I could try a little business of my own to make some extra money. After work, I went to the market to scout for ideas. The place was crowded. Most stalls were run by state-owned stores, but there were a few individuals selling their own goods. I saw an old lady selling eggs. Her stall was busy. A young man nearby was selling sewing supplies, and quite a few others were doing the same. I started to get ideas. Maybe I could try something small too. When I got back to the inn, I wrote down my ideas. First, I could use my sewing skills to make custom clothes for people. Second, I could buy and resell daily necessities to earn a profit. Third, I could open a small shop selling items women often need. But all of these required capital, and right now, I didn't have much money. I counted my savings, just 86 yuan. It wasn't enough to start anything big, but it was enough to begin small. I decided to start by making clothes for others. Ready-made clothes were expensive, and there weren't many styles available. Lots of women wanted something prettier and more stylish. I was pretty good at sewing and could make fashionable clothes that suited different tastes. The next day after work, I bought some fabric and sewing supplies, then started offering custom tailoring from my room at the inn. I began with a shirt for Mrs. Wong, the innkeeper. She was thrilled with how it turned out. Sarah, you've got real talent, she said, trying it on in front of the mirror. This is better than anything I've seen from those tailor shops. What do you think? I asked, watching her reaction. It's perfect, better than I expected. She was so happy that she even referred a few of her friends to me. Soon, I had 5 or 6 regular customers. Every evening after work, I stayed up late sewing. It was exhausting, but as I watched the money in my hands grow, I felt deeply fulfilled. After 1 month, I had earned over 30 yuan in addition to my factory salary. It gave me hope. If I kept working hard, I'd soon have enough saved to open my own shop. But just as things were starting to look up, I unexpectedly received a letter. It was from Mark. There were only a few lines inside. Sarah, our divorce has been finalized. Emily is pregnant, and we're getting married next month. I know this might be hard for you to accept, but I hope you can give us your blessing. If you run into any difficulties, you can come to me. As I read the letter, a wave of emotion rose in my chest. Before, receiving this letter would have shattered me. I would have cried for days, as if the world had ended. But now, all I felt was bitter irony. He got another woman pregnant and wanted me to bless their marriage? It was laughable. I tore the letter into pieces and tossed it into the trash. Mark, we live in two different worlds now. Your happiness has nothing to do with me, and my future doesn't need your concern. I will live for myself, and I'll live better than both of you. After ripping up his letter, I felt lighter than I had in a long time. That message barely moved me. I had more important things to focus on, like expanding my small business. Thanks to the past month's efforts, I had saved up over 100 yuan. It was time to seriously consider opening a shop. I found a promising spot in a small alleyway on the south side of the city. It was a storefront, modest in size, but with good foot traffic. The landlord was an older man named Mr. Jiang. He seemed kind. "Young lady, what are you renting this place for?" he asked. "I want to open a shop to sell things for women." Mr. Jiang gave me a once-over. 15 yuan a month, deposits 30. I did the math in my head. That was manageable. "That works," I said. "But I'd like a long-term lease." "All right, 1 year." We signed the contract on the spot. Then I began fixing up the shop. It was small, just about 20 square meters, but the location was solid. I painted the walls a soft pink, giving the place a warm, welcoming feel. Then I headed to the wholesale market to stock up on supplies, mostly items for women, hair ties, barrettes. I also stocked up on sewing supplies, fabric, and more. I specially picked out some beautiful floral prints to use for custom clothing orders. Once the shop was fully renovated, I gave it a name, Wander Boutique. On the opening day, I lit a long string of firecrackers at the entrance. They snapped and crackled for a good while, drawing a crowd of onlookers. Quite a few of them came in and made purchases. I earned over 20 yuan that day alone. I was overjoyed. Mrs. Wong came by to show support, buying a hair tie. "Sarah, your little shop is fantastic. Great location, well stocked. This will do well," she said. "Thank you for the compliment." She leaned in slightly and lowered her voice. "Just be careful. Policies haven't fully opened up yet. You don't want to give anyone a reason to come after you." I understood exactly what she meant. Running a private business was still risky in this era, but I figured it was worth trying. Worst case, I'd think of another path. After opening, the shop's business was steady. I worked at the textile factory during the day and ran the store in the evenings. It was exhausting, but seeing things gradually pick up gave me a deep sense of accomplishment. A month later, I was earning over 80 yuan a month. For the times, that was considered a solid income. I began to consider quitting the factory job and focusing entirely on my store. But just when everything seemed to be going well, something completely unexpected happened. One night, I was in the shop arranging inventory when I heard voices outside. "This is the place," someone said. "I heard the owner's a divorced woman." I looked up and saw a group of uniformed officials. They looked like they were from the Bureau of Industry and Commerce. My chest tightened immediately and I hurried outside. "Officers, is there a problem?" I asked politely. "We received a report that you're operating an unlicensed business." "I have a business license," I said, pulling it out quickly. One of them took the document and examined it before saying flatly, "This license is fake." I froze. "That's impossible. I applied for it through the proper process." "Your individual business license is invalid. We'll be sealing the shop now." I watched as they posted a seal on the door, my heart full of resistance. I knew I had filed for that license legally. How could it be fake? The next day, I went straight to the bureau to ask for clarification. A middle-aged woman handled my inquiry with a cold and dismissive attitude. "There was an issue with your application materials," she said, "so the license is void." What part of the materials was problematic? "Your identification is invalid." I pulled out my ID card. "This is my official ID. How could it be invalid?" "It says you're married, but you marked yourself as single on the application." That's when it clicked. So that was the issue. I hadn't had a chance to update my ID yet. It still said married, but I was already divorced, so I thought listing myself as single was correct. "I'm divorced now. Here's the divorce agreement," I said, handing it to her. "This divorce certificate is fake." I stared at her, stunned. "What? That's impossible. We investigated. You and Mark Carter never filed for a legal divorce." I pulled out the signed agreement. We signed this together. This agreement doesn't count. You need a legal judgment from the court or a certificate issued by the Civil Affairs Bureau. And then I understood. Mark had never filed for a legal divorce at all. He had only asked me to sign a private agreement, then went off to be with Emily like nothing had happened. I had been deceived. Furious, I stormed out of the bureau and headed straight for the military compound. I needed answers from Mark, but the guard at the gate wouldn't let me in. "Comrade, who are you looking for?" he asked. "I'm here to see Mark Carter." "And who are you to him?" "I'm his wife." The guard gave me a quick glance, then picked up the phone and made a call. A few minutes later, Mark appeared at the entrance. When he saw me, his face tensed with discomfort. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" "I came to ask you something. Did you ever file our divorce paperwork?" His expression changed instantly. "About that." "You never filed it, did you?" Mark couldn't meet my eyes. "I am working on it." "Working on it?" I let out a cold laugh. "You're about to marry another woman and you're still working on it?" "Sarah, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I turned on my heels and walked away. "You'll be hearing from me." Back at the inn, I lay on the bed, replaying everything in my head. Why hadn't Mark filed the divorce paperwork? Was he trying to avoid paying alimony, or was there something else? Then I recalled some details and suddenly things made sense. In the military, an officer's private life was strictly monitored. Getting divorced and remarried too quickly could have affected his promotion. So instead, he lied to both the military and to us. He let Emily and me believe the divorce had gone through when it hadn't. This man was despicable. I couldn't let him keep deceiving people like this. He needed to face consequences. I decided I had to act, no more letting Mark manipulate me. The next morning, I went straight to the political department of the military base. The director, Mr. Wong, was a serious-looking officer in his 50s. "Comrade, what brings you here?" he asked. "I want to report Mark Carter." He looked up from his paperwork. "Who are you?" "I'm his wife, Sarah Carter." Mr. Wong set down his pen. "What are you reporting him for?" "He's having an affair and he's planning to commit bigamy." Mr. Wong's brows furrowed. "Do you have any evidence?" I pulled out the pregnancy certificate. "This is from his girlfriend. It states the child's father is Mark Carter." I'd gone to great lengths to get that document. I had a friend at the hospital dig it up for me. Wong took the paper, read it, and his face darkened. "I'll investigate this matter." "Thank you." I left the office with a deep sense of satisfaction. Let Mark experience what it feels like to be reported. Sure enough, that afternoon, Mark came looking for me. His face was grim. Clearly, the military had already called him in for a talk. "Sarah, why would you do this to me?" "Do what?" I replied, pretending not to understand. "You went to the political office and reported me." "I just told the truth." His expression darkened further. "What good does that do you?" "None," I said, staring him straight in the eyes. "But I couldn't sit back and let you lie and cheat like that." "When did I ever lie to you?" "You said we were divorced, but you never filed the paperwork." Mark opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. "Sarah, can't we just part peacefully?" "Part peacefully?" I scoffed. "You cheated behind my back, got another woman pregnant, and now you want a clean breakup?" "Mark, remember this. I'm not someone you can walk all over." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there alone. In the days that followed, rumors quickly spread through the base. Some said Mark was going to be demoted. Others said he'd be transferred. And there were even whispers that his girlfriend had been dismissed from the hospital. I didn't care about any of that. As long as Mark paid the price for what he did, that was enough for me. A week later, Director Wong called me in for a meeting. "Comrade Sarah," he began, "after our investigation, we've confirmed that Mark Carter has indeed violated conduct regulations." "What do you plan to do about it?" I asked. "He'll receive an official disciplinary notice, and he's been ordered to resolve his domestic situation immediately." "What do you mean by resolve his domestic situation?" I asked. "He either needs to live properly with you as husband and wife or proceed with a formal divorce." I thought it over and said, "I choose divorce." Then the two of you can go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and complete the legal process. This time, Mark didn't dare delay any longer. The next day, we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau and officially filed for divorce. The moment I held the legal divorce certificate in my hands, I felt a wave of freedom like never before. I was finally, truly free. Mark, holding his copy of the certificate, looked grim. Sarah, are you satisfied now? Very, I said. And what do you plan to do next? That's none of your business, I replied flatly, turning and walking away. This time, it really was goodbye. Now that I had the legal certificate, I could reapply for a proper business license. I returned to the Bureau of Industry and Commerce and went through the process again. This time, I was approved, and I received an official license. My little shop was back in business. But I didn't stop there. I decided to expand. Using the money I'd saved, I rented the neighboring unit as well. Now my store was 40 square meters, twice the original size, and could display a lot more merchandise. I even set up a tailor's corner, offering custom-made clothing for customers. On reopening day, business was fantastic. Many people had heard my story and sympathized with me. They came to support me, and I made over 50 yuan that day, my best sales day yet. Watching the steady stream of customers, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. This success was something I had earned entirely through my own efforts, without relying on anyone. That night, as I sat in the store doing the accounts, I calculated the income for the month. After deducting costs and rent, I had made a net profit of 120 yuan. For that time, it was an excellent income, equivalent to 3 months' wages for an average worker. I began to seriously consider expanding further. Maybe I could open a second location or explore other types of business. I remembered that in a few years, the clothing industry would boom. I could start preparing early. The cosmetics industry also had great potential. That was another area worth exploring. Just as I was making plans for the future, I heard a knock at the door. Who is it? It's me. I recognized the voice. It was Mark. I opened the door and saw him standing outside. His expression was complicated. What are you doing here? I asked coldly. I want to talk. There's nothing left for us to talk about. Sarah, don't come bothering me again. I started to close the door. Wait, he said, reaching out to block it. I have something important to tell you. I looked at him, wary. I didn't know what trick he was playing this time. Speak. It's about Emily, he said, pausing. She had a miscarriage. I froze for a second. I hadn't expected that. So, I said flatly, I want to get back together with you. My eyes widened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What did you just say? I said, I want to remarry you. I stared at him and then I laughed. Mark, have you completely lost your mind? Mark's face darkened, but he still insisted. Sarah, I'm serious. Serious? I let out a cold laugh. Where was your seriousness before? I know I hurt you in the past, he said, but now I want a fresh start. A fresh start? I almost laughed out loud. You think I'm your backup plan that you can come and go as you please? That's not what this is. Then what is it? Mark opened his mouth, but nothing meaningful came out. I looked at him and suddenly a wave of anger rushed through me. Mark, do you have any idea what I've been through these past months? While you were with another woman, I said, my voice rising, I was living alone in a cheap motel. Sarah, when you and she were playing happy family, I continued, I was worrying about how to survive. I didn't know. You didn't know, I snapped, because you didn't care. His expression darkened further. It's not like that. Emily's miscarriage made me realize, oh, now that your girlfriend's lost the baby, suddenly you remember me? I scoffed. It's not like that. Then what is it? He looked at me, his eyes filled with something like pleading. Sarah, we were married for 3 years. There has to be some feeling left. Feeling? I let out a bitter laugh. Where were those feelings when you betrayed me? I was wrong. I stared at him. You think saying I was wrong fixes everything? Then what do you want me to do? I want you to disappear from my life. Don't come back, ever. His face tightened, but He still didn't leave. Sarah, we've come so far. Don't throw everything away over a moment of emotion. A moment of emotion? I shook my head in disbelief. You think this is just me being dramatic? Isn't it? He challenged. And in that moment, I finally understood. In his mind, I would always be the helpless little woman in need of rescuing. He never once saw me as an independent person. Mark, I said clearly, locking eyes with him. Listen closely. I don't love you anymore. That's not true. It is. My voice was calm, steady. I truly don't love you anymore. You're just angry. You're saying that to hurt me. I'm not. I turned, picked up a mirror, and held it up to my face. Look at me. I'm doing better than ever. My skin looks better. I have more energy. You want to know why? I met his eyes again. Because I left you. Mark's face stiffened. Do you know what it was like being with you? I continued. Every day I lived in fear that you'd abandon me. I never said I would leave you. No, but your actions spoke louder than words. I looked at him, almost amused. Did you think I'd wait for you forever until you got bored and came crawling back? I wasn't playing games. Then what was your relationship with Emily? He opened his mouth again, but still said nothing. Mark, I have my own business now. I have my own life. And I don't need you. The moment I said it, I felt a huge weight lift off my chest. In my old life, I thought I wouldn't survive without Mark, but now I knew. I was thriving without him. He looked like he'd been hit in the face. Maybe he never imagined I would actually reject him. Sarah, just think it over. There's nothing to think about. I turned and stepped back into my shop, ready to shut the door. Wait, Mark said suddenly. I have something to tell you. What is it? Emily's miscarriage. It wasn't an accident. I froze. What do you mean? She was pushed. I frowned slightly. Who pushed her? A nurse named Chloe, Mark said. I thought for a moment. The name sounded familiar. Why would she push Emily? Mark hesitated. Because she has feelings for me too. My eyes widened in disbelief. You're telling me you were involved with two women at the same time? It's not like that. Then what is it exactly? Chloe and I were just friends. Friends? I scoffed. What kind of friend gets so jealous she pushes a pregnant woman down? Mark's face darkened with shame, but he still tried to brush it off. Sarah, that's not what matters now. Of course it doesn't matter to you, I said coldly. After all, you're not the one who got hurt. I mean, he paused, then said, now that things have changed, we could start over. Start over? I stared at him. Do you think I'm a trash can here to collect whatever you decide to throw away? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He opened his mouth again, but still couldn't say anything meaningful. I looked at him and suddenly I didn't feel angry anymore. I just pitied him. He still didn't understand. He had already lost the one woman who truly loved him. Mark, leave. Sarah, if you don't leave now, I'll call the police. He looked at me, unwilling to give up, but in the end, he turned and walked away. I shut the door behind him and leaned against it, letting out a long breath. This man might never understand. Some things once lost are gone forever. I would never give him another chance. I was going to live for me and live well.